And we are live. Hey everybody. I am Reginald, and welcome to the Blak and Mild podcast or show or whatever we're going to call this. Really, I'm really excited to do this. I've been looking forward to having some sort of forum where I could just talk to people that I enjoy, get to know them a little bit more, have a much more deeper, meaningful conversation. Um, so with me today is actually a really good friend of mine. Ikraam. Ikraam is the host of the show Skib Mope, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Actually, if you don't mind, can you share a little bit about what that is and you know?
So Skib Mope is mostly just it's a YouTube channel that me and my friend Danielle started, and basically it's just based on OPS, and we talk about the things we used to talk about in private, and we just make it public, and it's kind of like a memory bank for all of our interesting conversations. So yeah.
Awesome. So we'll definitely get more into that. What we're gonna do, and since this is my first show, I guess I'll just set the stage. So for me, the reason I called it Blak and Mild, first of all, it's just a funny name. But I think that kind of captures the vibe that I want for these conversations. I want it to be very kind of chill, just each of us unraveling to each other, and all future guests just kind of unraveling at a very organic pace, and just kind of sharing and trying to have the deepest conversation that we possibly can on this type of platform. Um, there are a few topics that I am interested in particular with you, and I know we've kind of talked about it off screen, so we'll get into that. But first and foremost, I am actually, I think for anyone who watches, I am curious to see your interpretation of how we met because it was a very interesting turn of events. So I wanted to hear from you, how you how that, because I think that'd be a cool way to kick
Cool.
this off.
You'll have to jog my memory because I don't remember shit actually. I don't,
Oh my
I
god.
don't even know how I found OPS, but yeah.
Yeah.
If you,
So
if
okay.
you
So
jog my
let's
memory, I
let's
can
start,
check
let's
in.
start with that. So OPS,
Mhm.
for anyone who doesn't know, so OPS stands for Objective Personality System. It's a typology system, very similar to MBTI or other personality systems like the Big Five.
Mhm.
It's kind of in its beta phase right now, but it's an extension or let's say a successor to the MBTI system. They're trying to make it more objective by doing double blind testing, where you have two people in separate rooms try to come to the same conclusion to have a little bit more objectivity. Now that's debated, but they're trying to move it. The whole vision of it is they're trying to move it 1% closer to a more scientific endeavor than something purely subjective like a zodiac or something like that. So
Mhm.
that is something that we have as a mutual interest. They have like a Facebook community. There was a Discord community at one point in time. And so, we were, I think the first place we interacted was in the Discord, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
I've seen your interviews with Kendrick, and I actually saw your interview with Evelyn and Emily as well
Okay.
before I met you. Yeah, yeah, man. I watched. I got super obsessed with OPS, and I watched basically everyone's interview
Mhm.
of everything, and just yeah. But yeah, my first time talking to you was through the Discord.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah,
funny. Yeah, it's funny. Like, I'm not trying
we
to
didn't
drag
get
you.
along, guys.
We didn't
Yeah,
get all that. It was pretty bad.
yeah,
It
it
was
was
actually
pretty
pretty
bad.
bad. I'll
Yeah,
take I'll take the blame for that.
you should.
Oh my god.
Just kidding. Just
Anyway,
kidding.
so
I'm
yeah,
gonna
I
come
think
for you.
we got off to a rocky start. I think, um, and actually, this might be a first place to have a conversation with because at least according to this system, we actually have very similar personality types, right? So it's like in this system, it's like we're both moderately extroverted. We're both kind of results driven, very logic driven, and I think our logic kind of clashed at first, unless there's
Yeah,
another interpretation of that.
yeah. Um, so both of us would have extroverted thinking as our second function. And basically, what I feel like happened was friendly conversation would turn into like kind of a debate, and then our feelings would get hurt or something. Something weird was happening. I have no idea, but yeah, we definitely rubbed each other the wrong way, I think.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we're friends now. It's good.
Yeah. No, yeah, no, so and I think it's and maybe I'm assuming too much. Like so
Mhm.
since then, Ikram and I have had a lot of conversations, and I think our personalities being so similar, we share, similar struggles. I'm not saying we have to talk about those right now necessarily,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
in the system, for example, like one of the biggest struggles that people of our type tend to have is this inability to put on the brakes, to stop and reflect, to
yeah,
really, consolidate like a life path or an identity. So it's like we kind of get lost in the world kind of syndrome.
mhm,
And I think that that has led to a lot of great conversations. I don't know if you want to kind of comment a little bit about that, because
yeah,
either that, or because I know with Skib and Mope, your YouTube channel,
mhm,
you're processing a lot of your type in the context of you're juxtaposing it against other types, or you're kind of deep diving into one aspect
yeah.
of the system or things like that. So I don't know if you want to share a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So both of us would be struggling with our internal life, according to the code. And I think that's true for me, you know? So a lot of these deeper conversations that we're having, I think it's our way of trying to connect with another human being to kind of connect with the self, which is an interesting way to do it. Like it seems counterintuitive. It seems like that's not the right way to do it, but I guess yeah, when you're a bit more extroverted and you're so go 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 and so much of your energy is on the outside world, sometimes that is a good way to kind of like hack the internal life is to talk to somebody else and try to find how you guys relate and sometimes that relation can tell you something about your internal life. Um so yeah, both of us I would say struggle to figure out our internal life and also stay quiet and calm on our own. And yeah, I think it was so valuable to know that about myself, right? Because um, there's something about like when you're stuck in a gear, you just always think that the right thing to do is to do more of what you're already doing. So I guess I don't know if you would relate to this, Reggie, but like for me, I felt like most of my life problems would be solved from just doing more in the external world, actually just
Yeah.
pushing harder and faster and like just being better basically. But in reality, what I was struggling with is not understanding where I want to go and where all of this energy like how I should funnel all of this energy that I have, right? And so that is what reflection gives you is it gives you an internal compass. And I do believe I have an internal compass, and I think we've talked about this before, but it's just that um when you're kind of afraid to be by yourself and with your internal life, you can kind of, yeah,
Yeah.
lose track of
Yeah.
that compass. Yeah.
Yeah. And then also, when you just have the noise of like every day, because it's like if you're moving at a fast pace,
Hmm.
you're not really checking in with that internal compass. So even if you have it, it's
Hmm.
like things get so loud and you move so fast that it's like next, by the time you check back in, it's like you've deviated so far, because it's almost like you're being like pulled in like 10 different directions,
Hmm. Hmm.
all day,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So for sure. Um,
Yeah. And with our internal life, like what we're processing a lot is like our own emotions, right? And so if you think about it, like the more you get in touch with your emotions and the things that hurt you and process that, like the slower you are in the external world. And so that's another thing that we freaking talked about and struggled with is that, like is the trade-off good enough? Like is it worth it to slow down and feel sad more and fucking cry more and all that stuff?
yeah,
If because it's just scary. Yeah. So I think a lot of that with the people who kind of have that whatever sleep last like in the OPS system, a lot of what we connect over is, hey man, like we have to slow down in order to get our lives in order, but that is literally everything we don't want to do. Yeah.
mhm,
So it's a hard knock life, yeah.
yeah,
Um it's interesting because you've been getting to Gary V in the last like few weeks, and I think he would be a similar type to you. We're guessing, or and me as well. Um, in terms of he also has sleep loss, and he preaches like his biggest struggle, which is to slow down and figure out what the actually what do you want that's outside of all the
Right.
rat race shit, and actually like
Yeah.
connected to your own internal life. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting. Hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the GaryVee conversation's like huge right now. For me, I'm like, so it's funny because it's like I wasn't expecting to go down this like like obsessive. I have not been this obsessed about like someone's like content or thought process since like high school, like or really even college, because there was like for me it's like I would go down like I think it was Nietzsche first, and then there's like a Peterson rabbit hole, and I think there's like a few other like I think there was like a Eastern philosophy type of deal that I went
Caesar,
through. Hmm?
Caesar,
Oh,
Caesar's.
and then there's Caesar a little bit, but like I think Caesar was still an extension of Nietzsche, to be quite honest, because
Mhm.
Nietzsche gave the philosophy behind it. But
Okay.
there was also like an Eckhart Tolle phase, but like
I
it's
also
been a
like
while.
Eckhart.
It
Yeah.
has been a while, and I think what Gary Vee recently has done is he really has tapped into. I feel like he's tapped into a really core mindset
Hmm.
that I think actually unifies a lot of my obsessions, and to what you were saying, it kind of does address aspects of my personality, at least within this system, that I do struggle with, right? Like this question of what does make you happy? What, like, how are you going to build a path towards that? And how are you going to shut out the
Hmm.
noise of the outside world
Hmm.
who may not agree with what makes you happy, right? So
Yeah.
the perfect example he gives, he talks about how, okay, let's say you're working a $200,000 a year job and you're miserable, right?
Yeah.
But you love, and he gives really extreme, he gives a really extreme like analogy or example. It's like, let's say you love the Smurfs, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're, I don't, it's like you love the Smurfs. It's this very niche thing, but hypothetically, you could cut your expenses. Move, let's say you're in a more expensive place, you could like move to a less expensive place,
Hmm.
cut your expenses,
Hmm.
start a business like and a podcast that is Smurfs focused,
Hmm.
where you talk about it for 15 hours a day, and you somehow make it so that you're making 84 grand a year.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
now it's like a lot of people wouldn't do that, right?
Yeah.
And so that's, but then the question is, it's like, okay, why, right? It's like, are you doing like, it's like, if it makes you happy, why are you
Not
deviating
doing.
away? And it becomes this conversation of just the fear of judgment. And, especially for us, especially,
Hmm.
and especially within this OPS system where we both have kind of like a people pleaser um, side to us,
Hmm.
that is a huge conversation. And yeah, so for me, kind of absorbing that, and also some similar kind of mindsets around like patience, around gratitude and those type of things has really been, I've been like obsessed
Yeah.
really recently. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. 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 I think that's such an interesting conversation because I think both me and you have talked before about how um we've separately had to figure out times where we're doing quite successful in the external world, but then we're like pretty miserable. And so we've left successful things for less successful things, like
Right.
I think you talked about leaving a Fortune 500 and to work at J. Crew because you were so sad, and just get your bearings together. And I did the same thing with started an organization. I was doing really really good, was booking talks and stuff, um and as soon as like I was set up to start making money off of it, I was like, I fucking hate this so bad. Like, and then I started working at Starbucks, and I was there for like 2 years to get my bearings and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's nice to kind of hear Gary Vee talk about that because I guess it's a struggle that I'm trying to like reconcile myself because yeah, like initially it's like even though I knew something I had to do where like leaving this pretty successful thing to do my own thing, even though I knew like instinctually that's something that I had to do, I still felt pretty bad about it because like you said, like we have a people pleasing aspect to our personality, and it's not so much like making people feel good, but more like looking like you're a successful person who's
Yeah.
going somewhere. And so to leave my value and my status for something lower status, yeah, it was a challenge, yeah. And so it's kind of good to hear somebody of a similar type who like kind of preach that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, you need to get back on the saddle and like I don't know, maybe you don't have to get back on the saddle. Maybe that's just me. I don't know. I'm still processing it.
And no, it's a conversation like
Hmm.
and it's funny. I don't think I've told you this.
Hmm.
I am actually so within the OPS system. I know so for everyone who may watch this who isn't necessarily involved, one of the binary distinctions is they call it like self and tribe, right? So it's like, do you prioritize, like take like not even just taking care of, but like do you prioritize like going out and like looking to others first, or do you prioritize like you yourself first? And both have problems, by the way. It's not like the self thing's
Yeah.
automatically good. Like, you can isolate yourself very easily if you just do your own thing, right?
Yeah.
But one thing I've been thinking about that I haven't told you about is I wonder, or I think I've mentioned, but it's like I actually wonder if the social judgment conversation is more universal because
Yeah.
so
I wonder as well. Yeah.
because for example, like recently I visited a really close friend of mine in person,
Hmm.
and they were talking to me about how um they were frustrated at their family, like or their mom and dad,
Hmm.
who was living a very modest middle class or slightly upper middle class lifestyle. But it's like they weren't ambitious, right? That was the conversation. They're not ambitious enough, right? And so this person was sharing me, is like, well, why? Like, I was like, I feel frustrated. Shouldn't they be doing more? And I'm like, and I was already downloading this whole GaryVee conversation in my head. I was like, okay, but are they happy? They're like, yeah, but something's wrong with them for doing that. And I was like, you
It's
know,
a society-wide thing. Yeah, I would say.
yeah, yeah. So
Hmm.
it's kind of, but it is wild. Like, I mean, so that I think that conversation is a huge motif, a recurring thing that I see. You
Yeah.
know,
It's so hard to figure out what is right. I guess it's somewhere in the middle because I do like having a certain ambition. I think it does kind of force you to grow, and I think growth is like a symptom of life, and it's probably good for you.
yeah,
Um, so I would hate to be complacent. Um, and maybe sometimes that does happen when you kind of like just whatever quote unquote settle. Because I feel like a lot of times like maybe we'll say we're okay with the situation, but really we're just like we're comfortable there. But
right,
no, there's so many different ways to grow, and there's so many different ways to live a good life that's outside of the economy, right? And I do feel
right,
like, um, especially with our personalities, whatever, we might fall into a trap where we feel like our main like source of like value comes from how good we do in the economy or how
yep. Ikraam, you're muted. You're gonna
was
have
that
to
the
run
whole
that
time?
back a little bit. No, no, no,
Okay.
no. It cut off just the last sentence.
Yeah. So like I feel like a lot of times we're just we just think our value comes from how good we're going upward. Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So yeah, Gary Vee's fucking me up. Like for real. So yeah, I don't even know where to go with that because like I could probably talk about that for a while because I'm still definitely processing and trying to internalize that. I didn't tell you. I actually also texted him the other day, and he
Oh, did
responded.
you?
I did, yeah. So he has, yeah, yeah. So,
That's so
he,
crazy.
yeah. So fun fact, guys. So Gary Vee has like a texting community, but he at least claims, I believe him, but it's like he's like, yeah, it's like it will take a while, but I will get to every single person that texts me. And then there's also like you can also subscribe to like almost like a newsletter.
Hmm.
So they'll send like just general positive stuff to you.
Hmm.
So I kind of texted him, and like one of the things he said, and this was actually an interesting angle because it was different. It was slightly different than like the content I was consuming from him at that point. So so I basically said, hey, I'm kind of like dealing with like anxiety and all this type of stuff, and I, I'm struggling, blah, blah, blah. And so one of the things he said, or really the message was, hey, you're, actually, that's actually pretty good.
Yeah, pull it up. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Unfortunately, I can't pull it up on screen, but.
No, yeah, I know.
Yeah, so the fact that you can read this text is a blessing. If you are more grateful for what you have versus being upset about what you don't have, life would be so much better.
Mm-hmm.
Smile, you have an opportunity to make life awesome. That was the answer.
Aw,
And so the gratitude piece was a different angle because I was focused on like the happiness, the social judgment, because I still think that's important. But I actually am wondering. I was like, I don't think I know how to be grateful necessarily. Like that one's a hard one, and I think especially when it comes to like my personality in that system, it's like it's hard. Like because I think part of it does require you to like change your emotional state, and like for me, emotions aren't like the easiest thing. So I'm I know we're like channel changing to hell right now, but I was wondering, what your experiences when it comes to gratitude in the context of this larger conversation with dealing with your personality and like the whole GaryVee conversation we've been having.
I think gratitude for itself is something that I kind of had to lean on, especially when coming to terms with the personality typing that I got or whatever. Because a lot of the times when I look at my 512 type from OPS, all I feel is like, oh my gosh, if I had known this earlier, maybe like I could have avoided all this shit that I went through, right? And so I've kind of had to learn how to be grateful for my shit, I guess, for my crazy mistakes and crazy life, and also just being grateful for the day, which is something I learned. Eckhart Tolle actually helped me a lot with that, but just realizing that there's so much that is better in my life, like as the years have gone by, and even though there's things that I wish I had done, or like or I wish I had known. I mean, like, is there a perfect way to live life where you don't make any mistakes? That's what I tell myself, right? And I really don't think there is. And so just reminding myself that, and reminding myself of all the ways that life has improved is, that is definitely a practice I hold deeply. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm like I need to work on it.
Yeah.
It's hard. I think just go, and then zooming back out to the personality conversation, just generally just not focusing so much on the status game is just hard. I think gratitude counters that, because it's like, and I think what's I guess I'm processing it on the spot, but it's like what's interesting is that the status game almost punishes you for being grateful, because it's like, well, like it's nice that you have this stuff, but shouldn't you be going for this? Shouldn't you be going for that? Like it's
why would you relax when you're not like a freaking millionaire? Like why
right.
like you shouldn't be sleeping. You shouldn't be freaking.
Yep, you're muted again.
Sorry, guys.
What you're doing.
Freaking technical issues. I'm trying to use this fancy ass mic, but it's. I'll just use my laptop mic. But basically, yeah, like, grind culture just tells you to keep on striving. That's the only thing that you have, and I think, I think GaryVee is an interesting example, because he kind of reminds me of my mother, actually, who's also an entrepreneur. And I think some people are actually just born to do that. They're happy to do it. She's happy. I couldn't see her doing anything else, right? And it's like, yes, there is a balance between grinding, like wanting more. You need the energy to want more, to kind of go for what you want. But at the same time, this is why people have prayer. This is why they have this is why we have family. I don't know, to remind you that this is like, life isn't all about just money and freaking status, and it has to be something bigger than that, like leaving a legacy, being a good person, achieving your dream. and that's not just achieving your dream of owning a business. No, achieving your dream of like, what do you actually want to accomplish with this business? What legacy do you want to leave on? And so I guess for me, that's something I had to this is something I really, really freaking struggled with when I was a teenager and my early 20s, was trying to figure out like what it meant to live a good life. And so I took a lot of philosophy courses. I freaking read so much like guru stuff, and then I studied religions and all that stuff. And I don't really know if I have an answer, but I do feel like everyone kind of just says similar stuff like, hey, life is about love. Life is about, life is short. It's going to end. And just remember to actually live the life before, dying. And so a lot of that striving culture, that hustle culture, I think it can kind of ruin your present moment and your present life. If you're not aware of it, if you're not totally, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Have you experienced your gratitude fueling your productivity? Because I know that's kind of GaryVee's at least argument for it. Like, and I'm getting into the logic, but like that's his argument where he's like, well, you being grateful is actually going to make you move faster. And I have not experienced that. Like,
yeah. Let me see. Does it make me move faster? I would say that it makes me not burn out, because what I would do before was literally, I was like, okay, I'm going to use everything in the tank every single freaking day to try to achieve what I want from life, right? Well, I can't do that for an extended amount of time because I'm only a human being. And if I'm not freaking sleeping, I'm not having fun, I'm not experiencing joy, and I have all this freaking anxiety because I created all these projects for myself, well, yeah, I'm going to burn out. And so when it comes to gratitude and actually just kind of savoring the moment, and yes, putting it on the brakes a little bit, like I don't know if GaryVee is a huge proponent of that. Like he does talk about hustle culture a lot, but yeah, but I find that like when I do put on the brakes, like I can last longer. So it's more of a, yeah, it's a no-brainer for sure. Because it's like when you're miserable, all you're thinking about is, I really want to rest. I really want to stop. I don't know what's going on. I'm feeling like shit. Like that's the kind of vibe. And when you're grateful and when you actually savor your life and stay in the moment, you have more to give the moment, you're not constantly trying to escape it.
Right.
Yeah, because it's like, it's not a good feeling to wanting to escape your life. Just like, I would say like the worst times in my life was when I was doing the best externally, but my internal life was all like, oh, I'm confused, I'm unhappy, I don't know why I'm doing any of the stuff I'm doing, and when can I stop?
Right.
And it's just like, is it worth it? I didn't think so. I had to switch some things around. I had to explore more, yada, yada, yada. But I'm actually pretty grateful I did it, because yeah, my quality, that's also part of like strengthening that internal compass that we talked about before, which is when you stop getting all that praise for your external achievements, what do you have to stand on? You have to stand on just your own internal balance and like health, which is it's a good lesson for me to have learned, and that's what I was kind of telling myself when I was super scared in the beginning, where I was like, oh, I might as well learn this in my 20s until like, rather than having a midlife crisis, down the line.
I do want to switch gears a little bit because I do want to see. I'm curious. So, your show, Skib Mope, right? I have only watched like 2 episodes, if I'm being honest. I watched the one on sleep processing, of course, and then I watched the one with Leon, who's another friend of ours. But I kind of wanted to see, why you even started it, and what was like where do you see it going, and like what's the focus right now? Like, where are you at with all that?
So for Skib Mope, me and Danielle, like we became friends. She was my first friend off the Facebook group. Yeah, there's a large Facebook group surrounding OPS, and I don't know. Actually, it's so weird how we started talking. I think we just started watching The Real Housewives together, and then
Right.
we would like talk on the phone while we're watching it, and then we obviously compulsively started typing everybody and having all these interesting conversations. And then we're like, oh my gosh, we should start a YouTube channel. And I was like, wait, I already did, because I'm freaking I'm such a ridiculous person. As soon as I got my type back, I started the Skib Mope. I literally called it Skib Mope because I think I have a friend who's a mope, who's also kind of into OPS. She didn't want to do the YouTube channel, and I also had like nothing to say. So I just had it, and I was like, yeah, we should. And then we started recording episodes, and basically it's like a time capsule for all of our interesting conversations, because I feel like me and Danielle, like we're different enough to like have interesting conversations. We're also similar enough to like kind of really vibe, you know? So both of us are sensors in OPS, and we're on the TE-FI axis and all that stuff. So we have some similarities there. And so I think, I don't know, she's also such a good friend. And basically what we hope to get from, and I think because we're both sensors, we come at the intuition of OPS a little bit with like a queer eye, like just kind of questioning things and trying to puzzle out like what is the most valuable for your life right now, right? Because that's how we kind of approach the system, is that like theory is cool, but what we really want is to actually see results in our life. Yeah. And so that's Skib Mope. It's kind of fun.
Nice. Okay, so awesome. Yeah, so you said you wanted to make a time capsule for your conversation. I mean, this is a hard question, but do you have like a minimum timeline or time frame for how long you're going to run it? Obviously, if, you could stop it before or after, of course, but do you have like a rough idea of how long you're going to do that?
No. Probably, I don't know. Probably a year at least. I'm not sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
No, I think it's going to be a while, because it's like me and Danielle talk about this. So me and Danielle are going to be friends for like ever, whatever. But we talk about OPS so much that it's not too hard to make the episodes. So it's like, yeah, why wouldn't we keep recording them? So yeah, I feel
Right.
well, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think has been the most interesting conversation that you've had on there?
Oh wow. I think I really like our first episode, which was talking about demon intuition, which is something that I don't see a lot of people talking about on the Facebook groups and stuff.
Okay.
And I really liked the sleep processing video, because I felt like it came at a time where I had just kind of figured out what sleep processing was, and it was good to talk to Danielle about it. So sleep processing is basically so developing the inner world, like cleaning up the inner world for people who are not familiar with OPS. And so this is something that I'm really fucking suck at, and I'm constantly avoiding. And Danielle is really good at, and she has to work more on the play side. So it was really nice, because I came in with all these ideas that I wasn't really sure if like they were correct, and it was nice to hear that Danielle was like, yeah, I absolutely see where you're coming from. And yeah, I've watched that video just for my own like self-growth like multiple times, because I'm like, oh yeah,
cool.
yeah, to remember that.
Yeah, I think that was the first one I watched all the way through. I mean, because that has been a fixation of mine. Like, and I'll always ask when I was on that discourse, like, how do you sleep process? And I'll confuse everyone to see how they're doing it. Because it's such a in the system, it's such a I mean, the system itself, there are a lot of gray areas, but I think with sleep processing, for me, it's the most unintuitive, like, because it's very much like, okay, so what is it? Is like, are you just relaxing? Are you actively doing something in there? And like, people give you mixed messages and all this stuff. So, yeah, I think that was one of the conversations I really listened to. I might actually revisit that as well, because that was I think it was a good perspective. I think I especially liked, there was the example of I think you were the one who reminded me of it. It was like I think you guys were talking about your experiences at amusement parks, and you were using that as an analogy.
Oh, that was
for,
That was not at all. That was so cool. Yeah. Because
yeah,
Danielle had talked about how she didn't go on any of the amusement park rides because she was afraid of what was going to happen. So obviously, like, so that was kind of more of an issue of like experiencing new things in the sensory. And then for me, it's like it was just, and also it was she had thought it through totally, right, and it was a bit too cautious. And then for me, I had the same kind of fear, but I just ran and like went onto the ride, a ride where I was like too short and too young to be riding at all. And then I screamed and cried and got the ride taken down, right? So it's just the different energy. It's not that one is more brave or one is more fearful. It's just that one is going to throw themselves into the fire and then run out later scorched and like marred by war. And then the other one is going to be a little bit more cautious and careful. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I definitely relate to being more like scarred.
Yeah.
Like war torn. Yeah, because there's a bunch of things I just run into without thinking too hard about it. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's, in a way, that's kind of like back to the GaryVee of like gratefulness thing. I am kind of grateful that I kind of go through life that way, because the times where you don't have like a 3rd-degree burn and you're like not scorched to the bone, like it's kind of good, because it's just, you feel I feel strong and I feel like I'm capable and I'm less scared of doing those things. And so it's like it's a way to force you to grow, right? Without yeah, because that's another thing that I'm kind of wary about sleep processing, is that it just makes me more self-conscious, I think, a little bit, or like fearful, because thinking about things before you do them, it's just easier to do them, guys. That is my tip.
Well, I don't. It depends on the context, though, right? So, like, and yeah, we're about to get super technical, but like we might as well. So, I remember one of the recent conversations. So, there's another person in the community who described sleep processing as, it's like you're a new kid in school, and you know no one, and you're like I can't really trust anyone. So it's like you're like carefully like tailoring all of your words so that you like they don't come off like you don't come off a wrong way, or like you're being super careful that way. I think that's necessary in a hostile environment, right? I think like our approach where we're just like, oh, let's just go, that's gonna get us like hurt for real. If especially and I think part of it is like we are too trusting of the social world. And there are people out there, and there are groups out there that are pretty manipulative, malevolent, like they don't have a interest at heart. So it's like, and it's like if we're just kind of in the moment, super trusting, it's like we're gonna overexpose ourselves. We're gonna share a lot, and so it's like
it's awkward. Yeah, I said it's definitely awkward to realize that.
Yeah. It's I think it's the proper. I think it works in context, but like, to be fair, it's like we live in the most peaceful era of like human history, right? So it's like it's pretty, it's like you I feel like it's like you need to be in a really bad spot to do that. That's my bias, right? And I think my personality is gonna say that as well. But it's like my bias is like, look, things must be pretty bad if you're protecting yourself that much,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's a necessity to that.
Yeah. It is interesting. There's so much pros to sleep as well, though, because it's like when you're the person who extends yourself out there first, it's like you're kind of putting you're giving the power to the other person to evaluate you, and that's how it feels, at least for me. Like the more I think about it, because it's like, oh, like I feel like I can only ever be myself in a situation, and it's like whatever comes out my mouth is what comes out my mouth. Whereas, like, I think maybe somebody who is a little bit more introverted, or like just has sleep higher or whatever in their stack, if we're talking about OP or whatever, they are able to kind of like just more aware of like how they're coming off, and just don't have to be at the mercy of the group, right? Because a lot of times when I like play too much. It's just, it feels like yeah, now I'm in a vulnerable place because you know more about me. I've overextended myself. I've given you too much energy. I've like, maybe you have ideas about me that I don't feel like are like totally like in line with reality because this and this and this, and it's just, I don't know. It's just different. So yeah, I don't know. There's so much pros and cons to. But yeah, another thing with play is that like or just like more extroverted energy is that like half of getting anywhere is just kind of doing the thing and just going there.
Mhm.
And the less of a pause you have, kind of the nicer it is, the more you are able to get
Yeah.
things in, you know? Because
Yeah.
I've never had an issue with like networking or like maybe it's scary for me to give a speech or whatever, but I'll still do it. Like, and I'll take the opportunities, and therefore, and the more opportunities you take, the more opportunities you get. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I think you're. I mean, that's an ongoing conversation, right? Like, it's like in theory, we should be doing more of the protective thing. I'm starting to question that, if I'm being completely honest with you. Like, I am genuinely, especially after the whole GaryVee obsession I'm having.
hmm
It's like I am seeing that you can. So actually, let me take a step back. The real conversation, or the bigger conversation here, is: do you focus on your strengths or your weaknesses?
yeah,
That's where my like,
man,
that's part of the quote unquote Gary V conversation I'm having with myself. It's like, look, and we've had this. It's like, regardless of what your personality type is or whatever, it's like, do you focus on, like, tripling down on, improving these really shortcomings and suffering through getting yourself to a very basic level, or maybe even a moderate level, and sacrificing what you're extremely good at,
yeah,
right? Or do you just go, like, it's like, you know what, like, I'm doing this. um Now, I think what the OPS system is highlighting, or one of the things it highlights, which is a good point, is that
Mhm.
a lot of people unconsciously go all in on their strengths. They may not be intentional about developing those strengths, right? But I do think they unconsciously go all in,
Mhm.
and they cause a lot of problems because they don't feel responsible for other aspects of reality, and that's where they mess up. Like, so to give you a good example, there are people who are like, you know what? I'm only good at making people feel good. I'm not responsible for the logic. As long as I made them feel better, that's good. I don't have to worry about how things work. And what I've heard, is that, and what I've seen in a lot of my friends who are like that, is they're like, oh, I made you feel better, and they're gonna promise you a lot of things, and it's like, but then when you try and go do the thing, you're struggling, and then you go and ask them, it's like, hey, what's going on? I mean, you promised me this, and they're like, oh no, it's fine, as long as you feel better, you'll figure it out for yourself. And like, it's like, you get kind of thrown out to the freaking wolves, because
Yeah.
they do something that didn't work,
Yeah, Gary
so
Vee kind of does this himself, yeah, where he's telling everyone to freaking quit your job, just do what makes you happy. I'm like, quit your job, like you got bills, you
yeah.
got bills to pay, man. Don't quit your job right now, like, I don't know, which is, I don't know,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, well, I mean, I think with Gary Vee, it's like he's extreme with that. I think he's, at least what I've seen recently, maybe he's shifted in the last 3 years,
mm-hmm.
because in his recent conversation, like, he's like, quit your job when you can afford it, but then, like, he's
Yeah,
switching to the conversation of expenses, right? But yeah,
yeah,
like, I think earlier, like when he was like, early on in this kind of speaking gig, yeah, it wasn't very extreme, like, yo, just quit your job, don't you want to be happy, like, all this stuff. And next thing you know, people, like, a bunch of people are quitting their jobs, you know and they
yeah,
can't live. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah,
now, but, like, I think the conversation for me is like, to bring it back, is like, do I really need to be, like, super protective? Like, is that really what I need to be tripling down on? It's like being this hype. Like, I don't think so.
yeah. See, I think maybe we're getting the definitions wrong because it's like, is sleep only just about self protection? I feel like it's self preservation. which is
Well, I mean, it's so this is why I said it's like the like these terms are still kind of vague, especially in layman's terms, because it's like there's a lot associated with it, right? It's
yeah,
like self-preservation, it's about narrowing down, it's about
mhm, mhm.
building for the future and all the like
I
organizing all this. There's a lot of different practical things that are tied into that one
yeah,
term.
yeah,
My thing though is even with all of those things,
yeah.
do I need to be hyper focused on that right now? I don't
I
know.
think I think it's just kind of like you need to make sure that you're just not that you aren't doing it. You know what I mean? Because it's like,
Right.
okay, so let's talk about the archetype of somebody who's like us, who has a lot of extroverted energy, a lot of like just go 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 energy up top. So play first up top, and then has sleep last. All the self preservation energy. Well, what does that look like when it's in a super fixated state? That looks like
Mhm.
somebody who's super TMI, like constantly processing themselves to other people, constantly sharing too much information and cannot keep shit to themselves. If they're having like emotional shit, like that's bubbling up to the surface. If they're confused about their future, they're constantly working that out in the external world and spinning their wheels almost, and not like kind of preserving themselves a little bit. So it's like there are so much problems when we do it too much and we're not doing. But then if you do a little bit of sleep, I don't think you need to like. Because sometimes it is confusing because it's like, do you like when you do listen to some of the Facebook posts and like the classes and OPS, it does sometimes feel like people want you to switch your personality completely, and
Right.
I personally don't think that's a solution. I feel sad when I do the opposite things I'm supposed to do, like too much. I feel like I'm
Yeah.
dying almost. But I do think I need to do some upkeep and learn how to do those things so I don't
Right.
freaking act out, because that is the biggest downside of freaking having and it's some to being extroverted, because when you're not doing well, everyone freaking knows about it. It's out in the open, and that can screw you so badly. And so I
Yeah.
think it is so important that you deal with that so you don't freaking fall on your face, in life.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, we're on the same page. And so that's what I'm trying to be careful. It's not like I'm saying don't do it at all. Like, so for example, it's
Yeah,
like
I'm agreeing with you. I was just adding.
but I mean that is the conversation, because it's like I think a lot of um I think a lot of people period are having that conversation. I don't even think this is like a personality type thing.
Yeah, it's so true. Hmm.
It's like, do you hyper focus on, oh, I need to build like these random skills, or it's like, just hyper focus on what you're
Yeah.
good at, and yes, balance out and get everything at least reasonable so
Hmm.
that you can focus. Because like, look, it's like, let's say you're really good at people, but like you're really bad at finances. Like you need to be at least decent at finances, otherwise
Yeah.
everything's gonna fall apart, especially in a business context.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
yeah, go ahead.
And also the way that we're taught about career and stuff, so much of it is like, oh, find your dream career, like find your, like as if there's this specific thing out there that's gonna like meet all our needs. When in reality, it's probably so, like a mix of 1,000 different things. Sorry if it's like a little bit unrelated to what you were saying, but I just thought
Uh,
because it's just like
I mean,
there is
yeah,
there's something that the market wants, right? There's all these jobs that are not things that people are dreaming about. Like how many people want to be freaking directors, actresses, and singers? A lot of freaking people. How many people love reading? Like it's just it's like the things that we like and love and whatever hold dear. And so I guess that's more of the feelings things. It's like I think that is super important, but also I think maybe the reason why some of us can't make it to like from going to feelings into thinking is that not it's not so easily transferable. I don't know. Like
okay, so
yeah.
okay, so that's a good point. So that is a slightly different topic. I'm trying. Let me see.
Yeah, so you can
Um,
stick to the topic, sorry.
no, it's fine. So let me address that brief. We might like deviate again. I'm sure we're like tangenting like like a lot. Like who fucking cares? It's
Yeah.
fine. But okay, so to address that, I think so that kind of goes back to the conversation of, are you willing to accept the lifestyle that comes with your passion?
Mhm. Mhm.
Because let's say you do love art, like
Mhm.
truly, it's like, are you willing to make like $25,000 to $30,000 a year for 10 years?
Mm-hmm.
Are you okay with that? Right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think that is the conversation.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so, but yeah, I think you're right. But where were we? See, this is so hard.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. Um,
Um, we were talking about whether we should lean into our strengths or if we should try to develop our weaknesses. Um, I would kind of I would say lean on your strengths, but also develop your weaknesses to the point where
right,
you're not cut down at the knees at them, at
yeah.
them. Mm-hmm.
But like, so my question to and like, I know we're kind of pushing it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
What I've been processing in relation to that is happiness really is happiness the easiest shortcut to getting both of those done at the same time? Because so the reason I'm asking that is one thing that I'm noticing is that a lot of people, they say they want happiness, but it's like they're defaulting into their natural behavior, and even they know they're not happy fully by doing that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? So let's perfect example. I spoke to someone the other day, hyper introverted.
Mm-hmm.
They like being introverted to an extent, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
that's their default, that's their mode, they love it.
Mm-hmm.
But they were telling me, it's like, look, it's like I really want to connect with certain people in my life. Like, and like I could, like, it was like a deep, like I could tell it was like a deep desire.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I actually want to connect, and my default isolation and introversion is getting in the way of that. Right. So it's like, for me, it's like, I wonder if, so that for me is an example of, I wonder if happiness is like, that person could tell happiness was on the other side of their usual way of doing things. So it's like, I wonder if I think maybe, I wonder if maybe that's why this happiness conversation is striking me so deep, because I do feel like happiness requires you to do like, sometimes it requires you to do the things that you're normally not comfortable doing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and so that has been really something that's been weighing on me, is because for me, I'm not super happy. If I'm being honest, I'm not like a super happy guy. Like, I mean, we've talked
Mm-hmm.
about that. Like, I'm not like a, and I'm working on it. But
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if that, because like this whole conversation of focus on your strengths and do certain things with your personality, it's all great in theory, but it's like, yo, when I'm in the trenches and I'm like at work, it's like, how am I supposed to practically navigate this? It's like, I can't just say, oh, what are my strengths? Like, I'm not gonna, no. Like, or, oh, what's this random like OPS system tell me to do? It's like, that doesn't work, especially in like a fast-paced environment.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you need very small like shortcuts almost. It's like, okay, focus on this, and that will take care of all of those more nuanced things. And
Yeah.
I'm wondering if like happiness is one of those things. Like, so
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense to me. Yeah. If you're feeling sad, it's so funny because it's like that's not what we usually do. But it's like if you're feeling sad, it does make sense to focus your energy on being happy. But it's like it's like I don't know about you, but it's like I think about literally everything else other than the happiness bit, which is
mhm,
like, okay, well I'll fix this thing, and then I'll fix this, and I'll get this job, and then I'll get this, and I'll move to this locale, and da da da, and then after all I get all these things, then I'll be happy. But if you
yeah,
actually try to focus on like make the happiness the thing, I think it probably would make a lot of things easier. Mm-hmm.
yeah,
And I do agree with what you said about how in order for us to be happy, we do have to do our weaknesses. Um, yeah.
yeah.
And that's obvious. I think it's most obvious with our last whatever animal in OPS, I guess, with sleep. It's like, yeah, like if you want to be happy, just freaking slow down, man, and smell the flowers and think about your life, reflect,
Yeah.
take care of yourself. Yeah.
Okay. I know we're probably like tangent a lot. So, but no, that's really good. I think that um kind of covers the bucket of like your skip. Like, let me ask you this: how much time do you spend like a day thinking about like the OPS system? Because I mean, clearly you think about it enough to have a channel about it. So it's like, I'm curious, like,
I think about it so much.
mhm,
freaking so much. I've been consciously trying to go back to my other interests because I think I joined OBS in December 2019. So yeah, not that
About
long.
a year. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and then I got yeah, it's almost been a year. Holy crap. Okay, yeah, and then I got my type in May, and so yeah, I've been obsessed with it for months. Holy crap, that's all I've been thinking about. And I think my obsession is fueled by I think the changes in my life. So
Okay.
yeah, I think it has helped me a lot, and obviously I met all these new friends, cool friends. So yeah, that would answer a lot of the hours of my day are spent thinking about OPS. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I wonder if, like, for me it was hyper obsessive for a good period of time. And I do think about it on a daily basis still.
Mhm.
Um yeah, I think eventually I
Did it
do want
improve
to,
your life?
huh?
Did it improve your life? Do you think?
I don't I think it's a tool. But it's like, why are you like, so this is why the happiness conversation is fucking me up, because it's like, why are you using the tool?
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like I can use the tool to argue with people all day, like,
Mm-hmm.
and stress myself out about over analyzing, oh, was this person this or was this person that? And
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
is that, you know,
Yeah.
I think the happiness conversation, especially with R types,
Mm-hmm.
like in this system, it's like, is this really the most important way to use this tool?
Yeah.
I think it's a great tool, by the way. Like,
Yeah.
bar none, it's so helpful. Like, it's like if you're using it to make yourself more miserable, it will do that very fast. Like, it will do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It will do that very, very fast.
Yeah.
So that's where I stand with that. Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree. Yeah. Like I remember having this conversation with Danielle, um, where I was like questioning like how real this was, and like what part of the theory was right, what part of the theory was wrong, like getting obsessive about that, right, and getting super analytical about it, and then like even doubting it. I'm like, ooh, like is this any of this real at all? And it's like, she brought up the fact that she's like, hey, it's helped my life. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna focus. I'm gonna switch my gears into instead of trying to analyze if this is real and if this is the Rosetta
Right.
Stone of freaking reality. Um, I'm gonna just focus on, hey, is it actually improving my life? And since I did that, then a lot of the stress left me, and things just kind of progressed like pretty
Nice.
mostly forward. Yeah.
Nice.
So
Okay.
it's
So yeah. So
thing. Yeah.
I am curious then, because I think that is a good transition point. If you know, what would what would it look like, or what does it look like
Mm-hmm.
in your life when you're using the OPS tool to actually improve your actual quality of life? Like, what is it like? How, when you're doing that, like, what does that look like?
The biggest thing is discovering, I guess, sleep energy, which is slowing down. So before I was given permission by getting my type, whatever, I never felt okay slowing down or like taking a rest or doing things slowly. It's like not only did I want to get my to-do list done, I wanted to get it done as fast as humanly possible, and then I would add things onto it after I finished going through it. And so I just never felt like, obviously I'm not a machine. I wouldn't be able to get everything done all the time. But even the times when I wasn't doing it, I just felt bad about myself because I'm like, oh, I should be freaking productive. I should always be productive. So this is finally, it was a time where I was like, okay, like I should actually explore my mind, figuring, and even trying to figure out how to sleep process. Like the way I started it was super stressed out. It was just like, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna think about my life, and I'll make a list, and I'll like do all the things, and which is more work, which is not what I was supposed to be doing, Um, and so like actually discovering that I can sit back and be in my imagination and the world won't completely burn down. I can sit back and I can take care of myself emotionally. I can sit back, I can go into my past, dive deep into my past, and I'll be okay. The world will not fall apart, and actually can still progress forward and I'll have more energy. Doing that has really helped my life. And also um, the other animal blast. So the ability to start things, like I have a lot of energy to keep going, but like sometimes starting something that I don't like is really hard. And so just also combining those two together and just like allowing myself to relax most of the day and just cure the 4 things or 6 things I need to get done, whatever, like whatever list of things I need to get done. And I can do it as slow as I want to, as long as I get it done.
Mm.
Which is not how I ever approached it before. I've
Mm.
always made everything super pressurized. Um, yeah, that and also just realizing how bad I am at energy management. I never even thought about energy management before OPS, and it's so weird to hear people talk about it like it's such a regular, normal thing, like the energy DOMs, as people call them, or the people with play last, constantly just talking about the things that they do to cut down on their energy expenditure, and I just don't think of. I literally never think about that, and it's like, yeah, it's obvious that if you're constantly expending energy, you're gonna freaking crash and feel super tired. And it's so much easier to think about the ways that you can save that, some of that for yourself,
Right.
and just have a better quality of life. So I feel like the quality of my life has really improved because
Oh, good.
I've been able to slow down a bit.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's really good. I definitely think it's improved the quality of my life, like the tool. But yeah, again, I think it goes back to the intention. Like it's like when I'm using it to improve my life, it improves my life. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
taking more quiet walks and really kind of taking, especially taking a break from people,
Mm-hmm.
has been a huge uh key for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, for example, like I had to step away from the Discord, like that community. And I love it. Like it's not like I have anything against them, but it's just like it's just too noisy. Like, and so that has been really that has been really powerful. But then, yeah, like little things. But like I think for me, if I'm being quite honest, like even up until this conversation, I feel like I was still using it in almost like a self-abusive way. It's like, oh, sleep processing at last means you should do this. Kind of like what you were saying at the beginning. It's like, oh, you should do this at a certain amount of day, and like this like fighting stressed out energy behind it. Um, yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's not good. So I definitely think that's something moving forward that I do want to kind of like like reuse the tool for something better than what I'm using it for. You know.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah.
Sorry about
Yeah. The way that I try to like look at sleep, because I think I was doing it wrong when I first started, is that you should feel better afterwards. You know what I mean? A little bit more relaxed. Whereas before I was just like, I thought I was processing, but instead I was just like banging things in together in my brain. So I felt freaking more anxious. So that could possibly be something that's happening.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and also it's like I think it's also the classes. Like, um, the classes have this edgy like vibe to them, you know, where it's like push harder, go harder, and freaking face your demons and and it's like this toughness, which is also something that might be bad for our type, you know, which is because that's kind of already our default, and literally we need to find some chill and kind of not be in such survival mode. Yeah, because I the way I think about it is that when I got my type and I realized I was sleep last and compared myself, and of course, after I talked to other people of different types and really believed in this, right? I just realized I have a vibe of, you know, life is suffering and I literally just have to freaking have to like cold like I have to like white knuckle it my way through life, you know, and just realizing I don't have to do that. Like I can actually just live a freaking normal life and be fine. Like I'm more than
Yeah.
capable. That has been super, super freaking good for
Yeah.
me. Hmm.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, and I'm still working on that myself. But yeah, I definitely agree. Um. Okay. Cool. There was one other major topic. And then if there's anything else you want to talk about, then of course. But I think the one last conversation topic I always wanted to explore with you a little bit is this conversation of race, just period. Like, and just to give you context, I have like, this is gonna sound weird. I have not like, I almost was proud in a sense to not worry about that, especially when I was like in high school and college. It's like I was like who cares? It's like I don't feel like oppressed or anything like that, you know. But like,
Mm.
I know that I think I remember watching at least a portion of your video or something. I think it was your video or at least a blurb on the Kendrick show, where I think you mentioned that that was kind of something that you think about a lot and you care about a lot. And I know we've recently had conversations recently conversations about like what do you call it? Representation in certain films.
Mm-hmm.
Like for me, it's like the Spider-Verse film. I know it's animated, but like that actually, I've been watching that and like, and also the video game. And it was like, oh yeah, this is actually like really good for me, like you know, like on a deep level. So I did kind of want to explore that with you. I don't know exactly how, because I mean, this is not a conversation I have often. But I did want to kind of see, you know, um, like where you stand on certain things and like what you find. Well, let me put it this way: what you find important about that conversation. Like, why do you even care about that conversation? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess I kind of also felt like you, Reggie, when I was a bit younger, but then I kind of moved to a different province that was a lot more white and rude and kind of redneck, and I had a lot of racial experiences, and yeah, I guess there's something I had to care about. It's not like it's something that anybody wants to care about. I at least I think, you know, it's like
Mm-hmm.
because that's part of the reason why I was in denial of it, especially when I was younger. I guess racism, just in general, is that like, doesn't everyone want to just be an individual and just be
Right.
judged who they are, rather than judged by as like one part of an entire whole? Um, and when you're stereotyped and when you're a victim of racism and all that stuff, you kind of get your individuality taken away from you, and you are forced to think about these things. Yeah. So yeah. So I guess I don't think about it every day. Like I think there's a quote by Issa Rae that I really like. It's like just like for Black people, it's like racism is like a comma in your story, not the period. You know, it's just something that's like, oh, racism happened and
Right.
move on. You know, and so yeah, I guess are we talking about like a representation in media?
It's hard. Like I know this conversation is so open ended. Like
Yeah.
the reason I brought it up was, I mean, number one, because I knew it was an interest of yours just from a topic perspective, but then also, yeah, I think the representation thing, because, and I shared this with you, it's like, I think, like, specifically the Spider-Man thing, because the Spider-Man has a very, like, just Spider-Man as a character has always been, like, like, one that I resonated with growing up, like, because, like, if you can imagine, especially, like, with my personality type, it's like, you know, he doesn't have his life together, and he's struggling to, like
Yeah.
do certain things, and he's always trying to like take care of everybody else, like this whole thing, and like, but like this was way back, like you know, when I was like a little kid, like this is just Peter Parker days, right? And like I resonated with that character, just period, right? And like yeah, it's like when I would watch the movies or watch the cartoons, it's like I would like pretend to be that, and it never registered with me that, oh, like at least consciously, it's like it didn't register with me as a problem, but like I think what happened within the last 2 years. So the Spider-Verse movie came out in 2018,
Mm-hmm.
and then there's a video game. I don't know if you knew that, but there's a video game
Mm-hmm.
of the like Miles Morales, which is like African American and Latino
Mm-hmm.
Spider-Man that came out like this year, like I think
Mm-hmm.
this month, right? And like I've been like obsessively watching those, just like what I do with a lot of like video game stuff, like that I like, or but it's like I think as I've been doing that, it's like there's a weird feeling of it's like, oh no, I am this person. It's not like, oh, I want to be like this person. Like it's a different energy.
You're seeing yourself reflected, yeah.
Yeah, it's like yeah, it's like, oh, like that's me. That's actually the energy of like, oh no, like I actually feel like that. And I
Yeah.
think it makes I think what that does for me, at least with that character specifically, is like it makes the positive aspects of like the heroic side, like it encourages me to be more like heroic in my actual daily life, because I'm like, oh well, if that's me, then I can also do this, you
Yeah.
know, as opposed to like with the Peter Parker, for example, it's more of like this. There's a distance, and I didn't know there was a distance. Like consciously, it's like until I had that contrast, it's like, but there was a distance. It's like, oh, I want to be like that, but maybe I can't for XYZ reason. So yeah, I think that's been a really
Yeah.
interesting experience that I've been having lately. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's why it's so important to see yourself reflected on screen. Yeah. I wonder what it is about, because it's like not all representation is created equal, right? There's like I remember like you probably experienced the same thing when you were younger, and you're just like there's this random token black kid, and just they're like they have like no personality, and like what are they even there for?
Or they're only there to like make jokes, and it's like okay.
You don't relate to that person, you relate to the freaking main character, like just because a person's black is not just, it's not like, oh yeah, I see you, we're same, yeah. It's definitely not that, but like I like I think one of my favorite shows is Insecure. Have you heard? You've probably heard of it. I think maybe.
I think I've seen the first season.
Yeah, I really love that show, and that's one of those shows where I feel reflected in, because it's like, oh, I see myself, but I see my aunt, and all these cultural references. I'm like vibing with it, like the problems that the characters are going through. Like I can see those are the same problems I have. Oh, you went to university. What are you gonna do next? Da, 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 da. Like, are you gonna go into the artist field? Are you gonna go into the career track? Da, da, da. And it's just it feels like real life, right? So it just connects a little bit more. But I think the best part is like when you have good representation, it's just you're highlighting it's not so much good or bad, you know what I mean? It's more just like a real gray experience, whereas like I am kind of sensitive to like bad representation, because it's like it is either all good or all bad. Do you know what I mean? Like the model minority stereotypes, or the person is like literally not even a human being, just like totally perfect and like kind of boring that way, or every single problem that could possibly happen to a character, like it happens to this character because they're the black one, So it's just and it's just I think I don't know.
That's so interesting. I mean, I'm like and this has been like one of those iconic movies, I think, probably of our generations. Like my mind is immediately going to Black Panther, because I'm like, it was so nuanced. I mean, first of all, it's like it represented a lot of different aspects. Like that was almost its goal, or it's one of its main goals. But it was so nuanced in the representation of like the dark and light side, or like the good and the bad sides, right? Because it's like you had like the more traditional main character, and then you had like the African American, like and like and there was even a tension within, and I think that tension's real.
Yeah, which parallel tensions that are that happen
Yeah.
as well.
And it's like I think like as you said, it's like seeing that on screen, it's like, oh wow, like I could see myself in like so many like viscerally. Like, I could see myself in so many of these, and like it was almost like a mirror. I'm like, oh, okay, this is what's going on, and I think like especially with, and I think one of the benefits, hopefully this is not too much of a leap, but like I think one of the benefits of seeing really like high quality representation, so to speak. So for example, I'm thinking like of the Black Panther, like really the Marvel ones, like interesting. Like, they're doing a really good job. Like the Black Panther, and then these Miles Morales is it. I genuinely feel like, this sounds weird, but it's like I genuinely feel more confident after watching this, because it's like I'm internalized that, oh, I can play the role of a king in my life. Like it's like a deep energy. Like I don't know how to explain that. I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah. I think it's because it's like it's like rectifying a problem that we didn't notice, right? Because we're so used to it. Because it's like you're going through a society where you actually exist, but you're not ever seeing yourself as like actually existing as a protagonist, or like even when it comes to minorities in media, a lot of times there's one or two minorities and they always get together, and there's no just it's very weird. They're always a side character, and it's like that's not reflective of actual society, right? Like you exist in society, and there's a bunch of people who do things. It's just like it makes sense to freaking have a movie where they're main characters. And I think that's actually a problem that was being rectified, and that's kind of why you probably had that feeling, because you're like, oh yes, this is refreshing. I finally get to see like myself in screen. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So this might fucking. I'm gonna ask this
And
knowing this.
also made by and also made by artists who actually know what the hell they're doing, right? Rather than
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So this is I'm laughing because this might set off some shit. How do you feel about race within the OPS community or the system? Because I've heard some sketchy stories, if I'm not even gonna lie. Like, so for example, if you remember, you haven't, okay, let me spill the tea real quick. So you remember Ian?
No.
Okay. So there's one guy who got typed, for example. So this is an example.
Okay.
So one guy got typed, and he's black, right? So one of the things that happened is when he got his doc, how David Shan give the docs.
Okay, I remember this. Yeah.
He's like, yo, why is everyone on my doc black? Like, what's going on? Like, it was a weird. Now, and
I think I have a theory about that. I think my thing is that they probably think that you relate more to black people, and so they fill your doc up with black people. Because all the people in my doc were black as well.
No, yeah. So, and here's the thing. I mean, one of the founders, Dave, I think in several interviews, almost exclusively says that, like, or explicitly says that. Sorry, where he's like, "Oh yeah, like, we want to make sure that." Now, I think what's funny about that is, I don't know if it's racist or whatever. See, this is why I said it's like this is gonna sound some shit. I'm not trying to do that, but it's like for me, it's like, okay. I mean, sure, yes, you might like want to include one or two, but it's like the priority should be the personality, right? So it's like, and you can relate with hypothetically anybody, right? So it's like, so I was wondering, like, so that's, now here's the thing, that's one example of how I've seen race involved in that system, in that community. I was wondering, how I have not processed it beyond that, but I was wondering if you've like seen any dynamics or things like that.
Yeah, I don't know. It honestly doesn't bother me. Like, yeah, I'll say this: I was glad to see the black girls in my doc, because honestly, it was more like a shallow SE thing where it's just like I liked the fact that I actually did look like them. Like, it freaked me out. I liked being a little bit freaked out because I'm like, oh wow, I do look like
Right.
And I don't think that same thing would have happened if I had a bunch of people of a different race. You know what I mean? Or like, so it was David Goggins and like two beauty gurus, and I'm like, oh, I kind of look like both of these like girls. But yeah, to your last point about representation stuff. I don't know. Maybe I should care more about this, but I don't actually.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying you should. Like, I was curious because
I don't know what I think. I don't know what I think. I think it would be, yeah. Okay, so for example, like if I went into in my video and I was talking about being an artist, or like I'm a struggling painter or like a struggling musician and stuff like that, and there's somebody my type who was of a different race but a musician, I would rather have that person in my doc than somebody who's so yeah. Like, I think we're not only our race, like we're individuals, and yeah, like I definitely think just some things should matter, some things should, and I don't think it's totally bad that they think about race when they're making the thing, but I also would agree, like if there's somebody who's of a different race but has your same type and has like a similar life experience or like a similar career track, I'd rather have that person in the doc.
Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was curious because I think for me, I think the representation thing has really been the first time in a long time that I've thought about this at all. Like, I have not thought about it in the context of like OPS or my job or like anything beyond that. Like, so it is what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those are the three major things I know I definitely want to talk to you about, like those three topics.
Cool.
Was there anything that, I don't know, like you wanted to ask me or anything, or?
No, I'm happy to be in the first episode. I'm excited for.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Really appreciate
It's
that.
fun.
So awesome. So I mean, so my game plan, I want to say my game plan is I want to do this once a week, just to um just see if this is something I vibe with, because I thought this was fun.
Yeah.
Um, I do think I want to do more of a conversational format. I don't know if I want to do like lectures or anything like that, but we'll see. So for everyone, I guess, who watches this, it's like, just definitely leave some comments, share some feedback. I know this is the first one, and I'm sure it was very chaotic. So just let me know what your thoughts were and how you felt about it for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and also, if you're interested in joining the podcast or kind of having a conversation with me, reach out. I will definitely vet you. I'm not going to guarantee it's a yes. It's like I'm not going to talk to a random. I'm sorry, but it's like I'll definitely vet it and see if that's something that would be worth it. I think if this platform does grow, I mean, this would be definitely a good platform for people who are trying to like promote stuff and things like that. So um, yeah, so I would say let's end it here. Ikraam, really appreciate it. And for everyone who watches this, really appreciate you guys as well. And I'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.